monks. You should all be very familiar with them. To list some examples, if you will, from popular pop culture media, we have Po from Kung Fu Panda, Tigers from Kung Fu Panda, Shifu from Kung Fu Panda, Monkey from Kung Fu Panda, Crane from Kung Fu Panda, Viper from Kung Fu Panda, and Master Oogway from Kung Fu Panda, and others. I'm sure you can think of some other ones. Those are the ones I draw to. For those of you joining us from 5e Gaming, if you guys want to see the differences, we have a timestamp for you right here. And that's going to give you like the SparkNotes version. If you're wanting to build a Kung Fu Panda of your own, you're going to want to prioritize your dexterity and your wisdom. Those are going to be your key ability scores. Still worked in the word key.
You really did. You really did, yeah. At level 1, your monk is a pro at martial arts, meaning you have a mastery of combat styles that use unarmed strikes and monk weapons. There are a few benefits that you'll gain when you are using those unarmed strikes or monk weapons, and you aren't wearing armor or wielding a shield. These are as follows. You can roll a d4 in place of the normal damage of your unarmed strike or the monk weapon, and this die is going to improve as you go up in monk levels. You're also able to use dex instead of strength for attack and damage rolls when you're using unarmed strikes or monk weapons.
Additionally, when you're hit by a ranged weapon attack, you can spend your reaction to reduce that incoming damage by 1d10 plus your dex modifier plus your monk level. If you reduce this damage to 0, you can spend, a part of that same reaction, I should say, you can then hurl this projectile back at an enemy within 20 feet with normal rolling, and then 60 feet for long range. You're able to add your proficiency bonus to this, but one key distinction is that this projectile has to be able to fit within one hand. You're not basketballing a cannonball that was just shot at you and then hurling it back. I'm sorry, it's just not going to happen.
But I wanted to punch a cannonball back at you.
But GM, please, it fits in one hand. It will destroy your hand, actually.
I have massive hands. What do you know? My name is Jim Big Hands.
Jim Big Hands the monk. Could you imagine somebody building a character specifically with large hands? Like, GM, hear me out. Can I have been born with freakishly large hands? I don't see how this is going to help you. Sure, why not? Okay, cool. I'm gonna play a monk. It's like,
GM starts sweating.
Also for martial arts, when you take an attack action using an unarmed strike or a monk weapon, you can also take an unarmed strike as a bonus action. So for example, if you crack somebody across the jaw with your quarterstaff, you can follow that up with a good old punch from Lefty, if you know what I mean.
1-2. At first level as well, when you are not wearing armor or a shield, your AC is going to be equal to your 10 plus your dex modifier plus your wisdom modifier. So you are that dexterous and that wise that you can see attacks coming and they're not going to hit you.
Who needs armor? Just brush off your shoulders. You're fine. At second level, you gain access to what are known as techniques. Essentially, your monk level determines how many technique points you have, and you can spend these technique points to accomplish various abilities. Additionally, some of your techniques are going to have DCs that accompany them to potentially have targets fall into certain effects. Your technique save is going to be 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your wisdom modifier. So keep that in mind when you're spending your technique points, or T points for short. Some of the more notable techniques that you have access to at this level involve Flurry of Blows, Patient Defense, and Step of the Wind. If you're coming from 5e Gaming, these sound very familiar, but let us break them down for you.
Flurry Blows. Immediately after you use any action on your turn, you can spend 1 of your T points to make 2 unarmed strikes or make 1 attack roll with a monk weapon as a bonus action.
Next up, we have Patient Defense. Essentially, you can spend 1 T point to take the dodge action as a bonus action instead.
Which means that incoming attacks have disadvantage to hit you. The last technique option that you get at second level when you first get your T points is Step of the Wind. That means that you can spend 1 technique point to take the disengage or the dash option as a bonus action. And when you do so, your jump is also going to be doubled until the start of your next turn. So if you've got places to be, this is the option for you.
Rooftop to rooftop, baby. That's where I'm going. And while I'm jumping rooftop to rooftop, you know what's going to make that easier? Unarmored movement, which you also gain at 2nd level. Essentially, your movement speed increases by 10 feet while you aren't wearing armor or wielding a shield. The cool thing about this is that you're actually going to gain 5 additional feet of movement at additional levels, being 6th, 10th, 14th, and 18th, which will bring your total to 30 extra feet of movement by the time you hit 18th level.
At 5th level, you're getting access to multi-attack, like most martials do. That means that on your turn, you can make 2 attacks instead of just 1 when you take the attack action. So combine that with Flurry of Blows, and you're giving them the 1-2 2 times.
Next up, we have Stunning Strike. This is going to be an additional technique option for those monks. Essentially, when you're doing this, you can roll an attack. If you hit, you can spend a technique point to potentially stun your target. The stun condition has multiple properties, as you can see here on screen. One of the more notable ones being, of course, that you can roll your attacks on this creature at advantage. In order to successfully stun a creature, they do have to roll a con save versus your technique save. And then anytime they take damage from any source, it can repeat the save of the stunned effect. GMs, that's just for you. That's Kobold Press was looking out for you right there. Thank you,
From
Kobold
GMs
Press.
everywhere, Kobold Press.
Thank you.
Thank you. So at 6th level, you have access to Empowered Strikes. You are powerful with your punches, as they now count as magical for the purposes of overcoming resistances and immunity to non-magical attacks and damage. So there.
I'm
Devils
actually
beware.
immune to knuckle sandwiches. Thank you. That's a monk.
My knuckle sandwiches are extreme.
Next up, we have Evasion. This is essentially if you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge anything, because you can get out of the way of certain area effects, such as Lightning Breath, Fireball. You can make a dex save to essentially take no damage. So, for example, if you are caught in a Fireball effect, or typically if you roll a save and you succeed, you take half damage. Instead, you take 0. And if you fail your save, instead of taking all the damage, you take half.
So you don't have to be scared of your mage's fireballs as much.
Now you have less of a reason to care how big the room is. Your other companions should still be worried, though.
At 9th level, you also have the ability Perfect Motion, which means that when you fall, you can use your reaction to reduce the fall damage that you're going to take by an amount that's equal to 5 times your monk level. So at 9th level, when you get this ability, that's 5 times 9, 45 damage. It's already a hefty amount.
Big range of where you can fall and be fine.
Right?
How tall is that?
While James is doing the math, I'll tell you about the other part of this awesome ability. You can move along vertical surfaces and even across liquids on your turn without falling during the move. If you end your movement, or if your movement is interrupted while you're standing on a vertical surface or on the liquid, you're gonna fall as normal though. You gotta have that momentum.
Okay, guys, the math is in. Essentially, you can survive an average fall of about 100 feet. Much shorter if the d6s for your fall damage roll, at their maximum capacity. But the idea that monks are like ants and they can just fall and not have a terminal velocity to actually kill themselves is wild to me.
I always thought they were more like cats, who are more likely to survive falls from above 3 stories, because their limbs they relax and their limbs almost turn to jelly and they just absorb the entire impact. They're more likely to break their bones if they only fall out of 2-story or 1-story.
Oh, that's wild.
Yeah, physics.
Next up is Astral Teachings. Honestly, I think this is really cool. As an action, you can expend 2 of your technique points to become proficient in one language, skill, tool, or weapon of your choice until you are incapacitated or use this feature again. So essentially, if we were in combat and a giant battle axe falls to my feet, I can just go, okay, I'm spending 2 technique points and I'm gonna start swinging. I'm just gonna go.
It's also a really cool thing for monks to do outside of combat.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. My companion
I love how
was poisoned.
your brain is just always on the combat.
I'm sorry. It's always on Axis
Mr. Barbarian.
specifically, too.
Yeah. Like, you always wear your
sorry,
favorite
guys.
class on your sleeve.
No, kind of literally. I have a bear tattoo with a D20 in it. If that's not barbarian enough for you.
At 14th level, you're also going to gain the technique Diamond Soul, which means that your mastery of energy grants you proficiency in all saves. In addition, when you make a save and fail, you can spend 1 technique point to re-roll it, and you have to take that second result.
And then we have Timeless Self. Essentially, you kind of stop aging. You do still die from old age, but for example, you no longer need food or water. That's crazy. And your ability scores and your hit point maximum can't be lowered or reduced by any means short of a wish spell. That's crazy. I love that.
And then at 18th level, you gain Empty Body. You can use your action to spend 4 T points to become invisible for a whole minute. During that time, you also have resistance to all damage except for force damage. And then in addition, you can spend 8 technique points to cast the Astral Projection spell as an action, ignoring the standard cast time, without even needing material components. When you do so, you can't take any other creatures with you. They're not at your level of enlightenment, unfortunately.
Get good, Scrubs. Now, Livy, what if I want to take a break from passing out knuckle sandwiches? And what if instead I want to go and study in college? You know, I've been working the sidewalk job of knuckle sandwich giving, but now I want to go to school. I want to be a wizard. What's stopping me from multi-classing?
No, why would you? Reach enlightenment. And you know what? If you stick with it, you're also going to get boons, James.
Boons?
Boons!
Tell me about these boons.
I would love to. So at level 10, a monk's heroic boon is that they have reached purity of body.
I want to reach purity of body.
I know, right? Which means you've become a master of the energy flowing through your body, and you are immune to disease, poison damage entirely, and even the poison condition. And when you're reduced to 0 hit points, but not killed outright, you can instantly just reset your hit points to how many T points you have left. You can only do it once a long rest, but I mean, come on. Do you
That's
really think a
pretty cool.
couple years in Wizard College is going to give you anything like that?
No, probably not. You can also choose Purity of Mind. This is the clearness of your mind gives you advantage on wisdom saves, and as a bonus action, you can end one effect on yourself that is causing you to be charmed or frightened. Personally, I want that body, but some of you might want that mind.
Hey, wisdom saves are important ones to pass when they come at you.
As a barbarian with poor wisdom, I've never had any issues. I said with a straight-faced lie. Wisdom
I
is
have
my downfall.
never attacked my party members under a suggestion spell or anything, I swear, sir.
No. And then at level 20, you have an epic level boon known as Boundless Technique. Essentially, when you roll for initiative, you can regain up to 4 expended technique points, or T points. That's, by the way, my personal coining. Don't use that. If you start your turn with
Definitely
no technique
use
points
that.
remaining, you can regain 2.
So you'll never run out of T points.
Tai Lung from Kung Fu Panda, Master Crane from Kung Fu Panda, Mr. Ping from Kung Fu Panda, Commander Vachir from Kung Fu Panda, Zing from Kung Fu Panda, Grand Master Oogway from Kung Fu Panda, and now we have the table to break down exactly how the monk has changed from 5e gaming to Tales of the Valiant. Thank you guys for dealing with my absolute shenanigans. Let's jump straight into this. In 5e, Key is a point system that you're able to spend for certain abilities, and you gain 1 per level. In Tales of the Valiant, you have more points earlier, and then it evens out to 1 per level, but it gives you more uses earlier on when it's kind of, a bit more important. Next up, we have Deflect Missiles. At 3rd level, you reduce damage from ranged attacks. Instead of gaining this at 3rd level, in Tales of the Valiant, you'd gain it at 1st. After that, we have Slow Fall, which is now known as Perfect Motion. In 5e, you gain this at 4th level, and you use your reaction to reduce fall damage. In Tales of the Valiant, it essentially takes the other abilities such as running up vertical surfaces or over liquids that you normally get at 9th level, and it just kind of adds it in here at 4th level for you. So at 4th level, you can go ahead and do all the Naruto ninja stuff that you'd like. Next up, we have Stunning Strike. This actually received a small nerf in Tales of the Valiant, just specifically calling out that you can only do this once per turn. After that, we have Evasion, which you gain 1 level earlier in Tales of the Valiant, and then after that we have Stillness of Mind, which is now known as Purity of Mind. In 5e, you gain this at 7th level, and as an action you can end a charmed or frightened effect on yourself. In Tales of the Valiant, this is one of your heroic boon options, which you gain at level 10. You have advantage on wisdom saves, and as a bonus action you can end the effect. And then we have Purity of Body, which makes you immune to disease and poison in 5e. The counterpart here is the other heroic boon option. You have to choose between the two, which essentially makes you immune to disease and poison. Additionally, when you fall to 0 hit points, but don't die outright, you can gain HP equal to your current technique points. And this next ability, honestly, is going to change the way several monks are viewed from a utility standpoint. Tongue of the Sun and Moon, which is now Astral Teachings. For 5e, it just allowed you to speak all languages. In Tales of the Valiant, you can spend 2 technique points to gain 1 proficiency at a time. So, for example, if you wanted to be proficient with 1 language, spend 2 technique points. Any language you choose, you now know it. Or maybe you want to be really good with a skill or a tool or a weapon. You can essentially just do it, which is honestly really cool. The utility is mind-blowing, honestly. Bringing up the almost rear of this table is Timeless Body. In 5e, you gain this at 15th level. You do not suffer the effects of old age, you can't be aged magically, and you don't need food or water. Now, when we look at Tales of the Valiant, you gain this at 17th level instead of 15th. You gain everything that I just mentioned for 5e, but also now your ability scores can't be lowered by anything less than a wish spell. And last, but certainly not least, we have Perfect Self, which is now known as Boundless Technique. In 5e, when you roll initiative and you have 0 key points, you gain 4. In Tales of the Valiant, this does the same thing that you see in 5e, where if you start combat with 0, you gain 4. But let's say during that time, when you're waiting for your turn, you have to use technique points and you go back down to 0, either from spending your reactions, whatever it may be. You also then would gain 2 extra technique points. If by the time your turn comes around, you have 0 again, you gain 2 extra. So essentially you have the option or the possibility to gain 6 technique points when you started this entire combat with 0. And that is the monk table. So as you can see, there are a lot of finer details. I do recommend going back and seeing the entire video just because we get into some of the nitty-gritty. But if this little table was good enough for you, then hey, it's good enough for me. And I just appreciate you guys tuning in and checking us out. And ladies and gentlemen, that is the monk. So if you guys want to go out and start serving up some knuckle sandwiches, we hope that this video has helped you. To view more about the upcoming classes, feel free to check out our other videos or wait until next ToVsday when we have even more for you. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.